Book 1, Canto 7, The Legend of the Knight of Red Cross. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Morgan Scorpion. The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. Book 1, The Legend of the Knight of Red Cross. Canto 7. The Red Cross Knight is captive made by giant proud oppressed. Prince Arthur meets with Una greatly with those news distressed. What man so wise, what earthly wit so ware, as to descry the crafty cunning train, by which deceit doth mask in visor fair, and cast her colours, dyed deep in grain, to seem like truth, whose shape she well can feign, and fitting gestures to her purpose frame, the guiltless man with guile to entertain. Great maistress of her art was that false dame, the false Duessa, cloaked with Fidessa's name, who when returning from the dreary night, she frowned not in that perilous house of pride, where she had left the noble Red Cross Knight. Her hoped prey she would no longer bide, but forth she went to seek him far and wide. Ere long she found, whereas he weary sate, to rest himself, for by a fountain side, disarmed all of iron cloted plate, and by his side his steed the grassy forage ate. He feeds upon the cooling shade, and bayes his sweaty forehead in the breathing wind, which through the trembling leaves full gently plays, wherein the cheerful birds of sundry kind do chant sweet music to delight his mind. The which approaching gan him fairly greet, and with reproach of carelessness unkind, upbraid for leaving her in place unmeet, with foul words tempering fair, sour gall with honey sweet. Unkindness past, they gan of solace treat, and bathe in pleasance of the joyous shade, which shielded them against the boiling heat, and with green boughs decking a gloomy glade, about the fountain like a girland made, whose bubbling wave did ever freshly well, ne ever would through fervent summer fade. The sacred nymph, which therein wont to dwell, was out of Diane's favour, as it then befell. The cause was this: one day when Phoebus fair with all her band was following the chace, this nymph, quite tired with heat of scorching air, sat down to rest in middest of the race. The goddess wrath gan foully her disgrace, and bad the waters, which from her did flow, be such as she herself was then in place. Therefore her waters waxed dull and slow, and all that drunk thereof did faint and feeble grow. Hereof this gentle knight unweeting was, and lying down upon the sandy graile, drunk of the stream, as clear as crystal glass. Eftsoons his manly forces gan to faile, and mighty strong was turned to feeble fraile. His changed powers at first themselves not felt, till crudel cold his courage gan assaile, and cheerful blood in faintness chill did melt, which like a fever fit through all his body swelt. Yet goodly court he made still to his dame, poured out in looseness on the grassy ground, both careless of his health and of his fame, till at last he heard a dreadful sound, which through the wood loud bellowing did rebound, that all the earth for terror seemed to shake, and trees did tremble. The elf therewith astound, upstarted lightly from his looser make, and his unready weapons gan in hand to take. But ere he could his armour on him dight, or get his shield, his monstrous enemy with sturdy steps came stalking in his sight, an hideous giant, horrible and high, that with his tallness seemed to threat the sky. The ground eke groaned under him for dreed, his living like saw never living eye, nor durft behold. His stature did exceed the height of 3 the tallest sons of mortal seed. The greatest earth his uncouth mother was, and blustring Aeolus his boasted sire, who with his breath, which through the world doth pass, her hollow womb did secretly inspire, and filled her hidden caves with stormy ire, that she conceived, and trebling the due time, in which the wombs of women do expire, brought forth this monstrous mass of earthly slime, puffed up with empty wind, and filled with sinful crime. So growen great, through arrogant delight of the high descent, whereof he was yborne, and through presumption of his matchless might, all other powers and knighthood he did scorne. Such now he marcheth to this man forlorne, and left to lofle, his ftalking fteps are ftayd Upon a fnaggy oake, which he had torne Out of his mothers bowels, and it made His mortall mace, wherewith his foeman he difmayd. That when the knight he fpide, he gan advance With huge force and infupportable maine, And towards him with dreadfull fury praunce, Who haplefle, and eke hopelefle, all in vaine Did to him pace, fad battell to darraine, Disarm'd, difgraced, and inwardly difmayd, And eke fo faint in every joynt and vaine, Through that faile fountaine, which him feeble mayd, That fcarcely could he wield his bootlefle fingle blade. The Geant ftroke fo mainely mercilefle, That could have overthrowne a stony towre, And were not heavenly grace that him did blefle, He had been pounded all as thin as flowre. But he was wary of that deadly ftoure, And lightly leapt from underneath the blow. Yet fo exceeding was the villaines powre, That with the wind it did him overthrow, And all his fences ftound, that ftill he lay full low. As when that devilifh young Injun wrought In deepeft hell, and framed by Furies fkill, With windy nitre and quick sulphur fraught, And rammed with bullet round ordained to kill, Conceiveth fire, the heavens it doth fill With thundring noyfe, and all the aire doth choke, That none can breathe, nor see, nor heare at will, Through fmoky cloud of dufkifh ftinking fmoke, That the onely breath him daunts, who hath efcaped the ftroke. So daunted when the Gyant faw the knight, His heavy hand he heaved up on high, And him to duft thought to have battred quite, Until Duessa loud to him gan cry: O great Orgoglio, greateft under Sky, O hold thy mortall hand for Ladies fake, Hold for my fake, and doe him not to die, But vanquifht thine eternall bondflave make, And me thy worthy meed unto thy leman take. He hearkned, and did ftay from further harmes, To gaine fo goodly guerdon, as fhe fpake. So willingly fhe came into his armes, Who her as willingly did grace to take, And was poffeft of his new found make. Then up he tooke the flumbred fencelefle corfe, And ere he could out of his fwoone awake, Him to his caftle brought with hafty force, And in a dungeon deepe him threw without remorfe. From that day forth Duessa was his deare, And highly honoured in his haughty eye. He gave her gold and purple pall to weare, And triple crowne set on her head full high, And her endowed with royall majefty. Then for to make her dreaded more of men, And peoples hearts with awfull terror tie, A monftrous beaft ybred in filthy fen He chofe, which he had kept long time in darkefome den. Such one it was as that renowmed fnake, Which great Alcides in Stremona flew, Long foftred in the filth of Lerna lake, Whofe many heads out bubbling ever new, Did breed him endlefle labour to fubdew. But this fame monfter much more ugly was, For 7 great heads out of his body grew, An iron breast, and backe of fcaly brafle, And all embrewed in blood, his eyes did fhine as glafle. His taile was ftretcht out in wondrous length, That to the houfe of heavenly Gods it wrought, And with extorted powre and borrowed ftrength The ever burning lampes from thence it brought, And proudly threw to ground as things of nought, And underneath his filthy feet did tread The sacred things, and holy heafts foretaught. Upon this dreadfull beaft with 7fold head He set the falfe Duessa, for more awe and dread. The wofull Dwarfe, which faw his mafters fall, Whileft he had keeping of his grazing fteed, And valiant knight became a caytive thrall, When all was paft, tooke up his forlorne weed, His mighty armour, missing most at need, His filver fhield, now idle masterlefle, His poignant fpeare, that many made to bleed, The ruefull monuments of heavinefle, And with them all departs, to tell his great diftrefle. He had not travayled long, when on the way He wofull Lady, wofull Una met, Faft flying from the Paynims greedy pray, Whileft Satyrane him from purfuit did let. Who when her eyes fhe on the Dwarfe had set, And faw the fignes that deadly tydings fpake, She fell to ground for sorrowfull regret, And lively breath her fad breaft did forsake, Yet might her piteous heart be feene to pant and quake. The messenger of fo unhappy newes Would faine have dyed, dead was his heart within, Yet outwardly fome little comfort fhews. At laft recovering heart, he does begin To rub her temples, and to chafe her chin, And every tender part does tofle and turne, So hardly he the flitted life does win, Unto her native prifon to returne. Then gins her grieved ghoft thus to lament and mourne. Ye dreary instruments of dolefull fight, That doe this deadly spectacle behold.